Angie,
Hey, John.
would it be fair to say that this has been a year of ups and downs?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Every year is up and down, but yes, for sure.
I guess it is. This year has been a very interesting one. I thought it might be good for us to share some of our
Mm.
journey and our ups and downs with our audience as well, and how we're closing off the year and what we are looking forward to as coaches in 2026.
Welcome to the Coaching Clinic with John and Angie.
The show for professional coaches who want to develop their skills and grow their business.
Follow the show on your favorite podcast app.
And join us every Wednesday for new episodes.
It has been such an interesting and eye-opening year, I think. And funny enough, do you think, and I don't know, you all that are listening, maybe it's for you to actually answer. I think there's a perception that because here we are, we're giving all of this advice and we're talking about the good and the bad and habits and all the things that you do as a coach, as a business. And I think that there might be this really misguided perception that we've got it all dialed in, right? That, we're
Okay.
we're, right? We're at cruising altitude and, it's just this smooth sailing, and it's certainly not, right? There's always going to be, in that vein, there's turbulence, So I think that's why it's important for us to kind of come clean today, be a little transparent about our journeys. And
I love that we're getting some. I love that we're getting some aviation metaphors here, Angie. It definitely speaks to me as an ex-flight attendant.
It definitely should. And it's good. It's all good. Listen, I won't talk about crashing and burning because, that's not fun. But right there, it's kind of, how do you view your business? And I think for people early on, right, when you're first coming out of the gate, I think that we're a little hard on ourselves. Right? Initially, think about where you were when you started. You had an idea, I want to be a coach, and you knew nothing compared to what you know now. But when you go from being new, green, to anything, and there's that excitement and it's all of the things, and it's not quite as smooth, right? Getting up to that cruising altitude is very bumpy and not usually very quick. And you and I have had triumphs, but we've had a lot of perceived failures. I like to just call them redirections, but at the time, they felt like failures. They felt like, oh no, what now?
Yeah.
So
I think you might need to go and feed that bird that keeps making a noise in your background after we finish recording, Angie.
gosh,
Let's.
I apologize.
Let me just say that whilst we definitely have our ups and downs, we had this conversation kind of a bit last week about how I asked Angie, do you feel like you have pushed through all those times that anyone else probably would have quit? And both of us were like, 100%. We just kept pushing on and pushing on. Other people probably would have quit long ago. And you can get to those points where you think, how much further do I have to keep digging before I strike gold or whatever it is you're digging for? How much further does this have to go? How much longer do I need to keep doing this? And the answer is nearly always longer than you think and longer than you want to.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I guess that's just rule number one, perhaps, with any business, right? If you open up a storefront, let's just say, and I don't care if you're selling coffee or ice cream or whatever, right? There is that moment. You have to wait for people to become aware of your presence and who are you. And we've talked about that, and we will continue to talk about that, obviously, as we move forward on how do we do that? What makes the most sense? And honestly, for me, that was probably some of my biggest, and again, I'm going to say failures, but clogging up of the pipeline. But anyway, you have to come out of the gate with the belief that something's going to work. Even if you don't know exactly what that is, you have to start throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if it sticks. You have to. And that's part of the process, right? I mean, I could have said something else, but come on. I didn't want to be that. It's too early in the morning.
For you. Yeah. I agree. We end up doing it, but I think that can end up becoming a long-term strategy. I think I was throwing the spaghetti for way too long, and too many different things. Like we were talking a bit, as we like to chat before we record as well, and you were saying then it's like jumping on these trends each time they were coming out and never really getting anywhere with them. These like trending topics. See that in the coaching world. We see that in the speaking world. Instead of actually finding your thing, and your thing is
Yeah.
not the next. Your thing is probably not the next big trending thing, unless by happy coincidence they do match. That you need to find your thing, your place, your space in the market. Now, I had a really interesting conversation with a coach, who was another speaker coach recently, and one of the reasons I really wanted to speak with her, because she had set her business up in such a way that she's doing coaching and she's doing speaking and she's doing a one-woman show and she's doing all the bits that she wants to do.
Mm.
And she did it's completely her way, like her ecosystem, her way. And it didn't just happen all at once, right? She didn't just
Right.
sort of, all right, this is how I'm doing it, and poof, the whole thing appears by magic. She had to build that out over time
Yeah.
and focus on different elements at different times.
Right.
But she now has that. She has her business looking pretty much exactly how she wants to. And she even has her one-woman show feeding her speaking business and her coaching business, and other around as well. Her coaching is feeding the speaking, and
Sure.
just
Yeah.
great. How she's done it, I was like, yeah, that is what I want as well. Not exactly like hers, but my version of that. And that's what I hope every coach wants as well. What's your version of that? What do we ultimately want your business to look like?
Yeah. Right. And I think we've talked about being flexible, like the idea you start with, your entry point, it just may not be where you evolve to. And I think
Yeah.
that having the mindset of flexibility is definitely a key component to creating whatever vision you have, to be a speaker or to just, to be a coach or to be both, whatever that is. I think it's really important to know, like, I have to be flexible. If I'm rigid, everything that doesn't go the way I planned or thought it should is going to feel like a failure. That's the first thing. So you have to be, and I think, I don't know, if I look back, I think that was one of my hardest lessons, honestly, was learning that, because I
Yeah.
believed so much in a confined specific vision of something, of what I thought it was going to be, supposed to be, look like, all of the things, that I was like, well, geez, let me try something else. And it was like a completely different space. And it's so funny, because here I am all these years later working in the space that I originally set out to, but doing it with much more experience. And if I had only known then what I know now. So
Right. It is interesting. I was thinking back to some of my the earlier days in coaching, where I didn't have any of this figured out really, and was sort of ultimately, I guess, sort of moving around in the dark. I walked around in the dark and not knowing what sort of traps and issues lay ahead for
yeah,
me. Ultimately clueless, but not really knowing even what I wanted my business to look like. But the goal setting thing, we're talking about how we want things to look, the goals we have as speakers. This is an issue that I've had with goal setting, I think, from early days of that the way it's often been taught for people is that sort of, this is your outcome, this is what it has to be. Anything other
has
than
to
that
be.
is a failure. So you get the attachment to this outcome. Then that's the outcome. You start to cut yourself off from other possibilities, because you're
Yeah.
going to go, you've got to be committed to it. This is the outcome that you're going for. And on that journey, you're potentially going to miss out on some of the big opportunities that the universe puts in your path, because you are focused on this one outcome this particular way, which you may get to, or you may get to something similar to it, but ultimately you may end up, like most of us, getting to something that looks nothing like that, but at least you were
Right.
pointing your face in the direction you wanted to go.
So yeah, and I think so. You and I do this. We have these conversations. Much of what John and I talk about, besides the friendship part of our relationship and all the things you don't want to hear, but when we talk about business, I think that something that I will share with you, I think that one of the successes, one of the things that has helped me grow beyond being the flexible person I wasn't always in the beginning, right? But if I took that to the next level, if I were now to look back and sit down in my rocking chair as grandma and Coach Angie and give everybody my words of wisdom, I would say that having a trusted resource who actually has experience, right? So my dad was a very professional man his entire career, right? Super successful, self-made, and inherently has some things that he could always share in terms of habits and work ethic. But within our space, right, you don't want somebody who's necessarily your confidant that's going to just tell you what you want to hear. You really should have an objective person that knows and has some type of success to help guide you. I'm not selling, John or myself personally, although, hey, we're here. But
Why not? But
seriously,
yeah,
right. But
yeah,
why not? Because we didn't have that luxury. And this is me, much of what I have learned about the business of coaching was how to take what I'm really good at naturally and passionate about and turning it into that business. But it
yeah,
took so long because I didn't get a coach, or I didn't find that person, and of course you guys have a lot of noise, right? Like you go on to any social media and everybody is perceived in any field, any industry, as some kind of an expert based on what they're producing for marketing. I'm saying find somebody. I have a John, I have several other people, right? Some of them he and I share, that we trust to not just support us through the tougher times, but even redirect and ask us the tough questions. Like, you absolutely need that. If you think you are going to single-handedly figure this out with all of the noise going on nowadays, I think not. I really have to say that to me was, I won't call it a failure of mine, but I didn't know what I didn't know. That's why I started off this little dissertation on from my rocking chair, because I've learned that the greatest asset I had wasn't just my product, but it was having somebody to help me sort through the weeds, which
yeah.
I was not. I'm great with you all, coaching, but when you're in the business mind, there's a lot. You don't want to walk those halls with me. You don't want to get in there and see what's going on, right? You need somebody to help. And I think that is a huge success for me, was to have somebody in the know, in the industry, with experience, with success, to help decipher, the noise.
Yeah. I'm
Why are you
I'm I'm
laughing?
loving I'm loving the metaphors today, Angie.
I'm
Grandma
just,
Angie. I love that you even came dressed as Grandma Angie today.
okay. I'm just
I
saying,
appreciate
okay.
you for that.
John is so making fun of me because I said, "Oh, do we have to put the video out on this one today?" He was, apparently not, because I'm literally wearing a fleece blue robe with my favorite sunflowers all over it. And he's
It's
like, "Yeah,
beautiful. It's a
yeah."
visage, Angie. It's a visage. No, I get 100% of what you're saying there, and I do think we one of my biggest regrets. I may have shared this on the show. I know I've shared it with you. I don't know if I shared it in a recording, but one of my biggest personal regrets was not getting coaching when I first was getting started with
Yeah,
my business.
yeah.
I don't know what it was. I mean, I think maybe it was just like me telling myself I'm too broke to get a coach. I
Mm,
think that was part of it. Maybe it was also me telling myself I want to make the mistakes myself. Why? Why did I want to do that? And
mm,
why did I want to make all these mistakes myself? But I see now, hindsight being 2020, I can look back now and see I only really successfully managed to slow down my journey in coaching by never getting the expert help when I was getting started out that really would have accelerated me rather than trying to figure it all
Mm.
out by myself. I was clueless. I'd come from being a flight attendant and a trolley dolly to being
A trolley dog.
to being a business coach, a supposed business coach.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
I was clueless how to run my own business, and yet I was there wanting to coach other people on their businesses. Crazy.
You know what's so interesting though, and I can understand that, right? That's what we're talking about, is like not knowing, like, well, mine also was a little bit of resistance. Ask anybody, my parents, right? Mom's gone, but you can ask my dad, hey, is Angie obstinate? Right? And my obstinance got in my own way. I was so excited. I was literally like the bucking bronco trying to get out, ready to get into the, like the arena. And I didn't, although I don't think I consciously said this to myself, but I can tell you for sure how I felt. I felt like anybody else's input was going to be what held me back. And it was kind of this obstinance of, I know what I see. I know what I want to offer. I know what I can do. I know what I want this to look like. Who's going to be able to dial into that as well as me? Hello, coach. Hello. But, and again,
It's
like
funny,
I was,
Angie. Yeah.
what?
My parents would also describe me as stubborn,
Yeah.
obstinate.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ever describe myself as that. And when that came up once in conversation with my husband, he agreed that I was stubborn. and I look back and think, yeah, that was probably part of my equation too, just bloody mindedness, being stubborn about it. And it's also probably one of the reasons why I just refused to have ever quit on this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I think too, it's like part of my, my own psyche. And I've worked through this, like my control, right? Not wanting to hire people to help me. No, I can do this myself. So I'm so long past that. But here's the interesting thing that I was pointing to in the beginning of today, recording today, is thinking like, there is no, when you're a coach or you're this type of like a personal professional development coach, and I don't really care what the industry is. It could be speaking, it could be whatever, right? Whatever it is, coaching itself. The truth is that you don't ever arrive. I thought, at some point it was like this finite summit that I was going to reach, and all of a sudden I was going to go, yes. But John and I won't get super specific, but John and I have been talking about for both of us, very recent successes. And here's the interesting thing. These successes are probably temporary, right? Getting a new client or developing a new product, like whatever that success is not forever. It's just not. And when you realize that, you kind of go, oh. And we've talked about pipelines and things in the past, right? Not having a cyclical business. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about the perception of the success. And it's like, how do you know when you're actually successful? Well, maybe you have to define what success would mean for you. Is it a type of client? Is it a dollar amount of earnings that you can keep consistent? I don't care what it is. It's 95% of the time. And I'm only saying that because I don't want somebody to say, how could you say that? It's so absolute. But 95% of the time, it is temporary. And you will always and forever be, maybe the success is figuring out your niche and knowing, oh, I have real clarity there. This worked finally. Threw my spaghetti, and I threw 10 pieces of spaghetti, and these 5 or these 3 keep sticking. Maybe I should follow that and keep making that type of spaghetti. That's clarity, and that's a success. But that's one space. But to think that you may never evolve into a new piece of spaghetti is absolutely wrong. John is just laughing at me. I know. Grandma, spaghetti,
this concept of people evolving into pieces of spaghetti, Angie, is one that's going to stay with me.
But it's always, listen, here's the truth though. Stop. Business is trials and tribulations, right?
Yeah.
It could be in clothing, right? It could be in the garment industry and saying, oh, what's the trend this year? And if you don't have the right trend at the right time, you've missed it. And now you have to wait until the next time. So you can
Sure.
poke fun at me all you want, and I'm used to you. You don't scare me. However, but the truth of the matter is, you need to understand that to me, there's no finite, I have arrived. Clarity,
Mm.
but really, like, any success that he and I have been talking about is absolutely, we know this specific thing is temporary, and there is
And
always more.
I love that you say that. And to think that you could even imagine that I might want someone else to host the show with me. I don't know where that could possibly come from. It would never be like this, Angie. And I love this. Yeah, 100% that. 100% uncertainty to a degree as entrepreneurs. Uncertainty is the price for being freed from the prison of a 9 to 5.
You know what? And there it is. Sometimes it's ambiguity. And then sometimes it's, I don't know what next will look like, but maybe I have an idea of how to do what's next or get to what's next. And
Yeah.
being open to the idea of there is always more. There's always something to learn. Um, and if you're not getting it right, if it's not sticking yet, there's no traction being gained. It just means that you have to keep pivoting a little bit until you do, and then say, ha ha ha, right? John said earlier, like striking gold. You don't always know. You kind of go, well, this looks like, and this has been the experience, and this could be, and you dig and you dig, and then you go, we put a lot of resources here, probably not working, but what is next? Where do I go? And when you strike gold, at some point, think about the gold rush, think of all the things, like we're going with you now. Eventually, it runs out. And you have to be prepared for that. Sure, take advantage and do all the things you
Yeah.
have to do when you find it. But no, this isn't your final dig. This is not the last time.
And this is part of what makes being a business owner not for everyone. Whilst you don't, having a job gives you a level of apparent security. You don't have to be so concerned about the pipelines and all that sort of stuff, but they're still relevant. This was becoming very apparent in a conversation with some of our ex-colleagues yesterday, right? I mean,
Yeah.
things can change dramatically with even with a situation that you feel certain in. But as a business owner, that's all the time. That's your journey. it's going to be how it is. And sometimes there are going to be ups and you're riding the wave, and other times it isn't. And as a coach,
Right.
I think coaching is a little different to speaking. Like I feel like in speaking, while some things change, ultimately what gets you there will still get you there as a speaker. Like the systems, the process, the applications is pretty much
sure.
Some things change, but mostly it's the same. In coaching, that's not the case. What got you there last year won't get you there this year. We again having this chat yesterday with friends, but this whole concept of like paid ads would get you there before. Organic is more likely to get you there now. You see the success of that. We talked about my article last time, that the results I've been getting from that is like showing me, all right, leaning into organic and articles, which seems to be where a lot of attention is going. That's a good path to take. It is at least giving me some indication of that. We'll see we'll see if that continues to go on. For last week I struck gold. This week, who knows? It may not last. So that's the nature of it all. You're trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. But coaching, I think it is that little bit harder of other than word of mouth referrals.
Sure.
For the most part, what gets you results as a coach may not still get you results in the future. I think maybe there's some other things that probably still will, like speaking, word of mouth referrals. I mean, they kind of very closely related there, in person and credibility building. But a lot of the other marketing and sales stuff has changed a lot for in the
listen,
industry.
You know what? That's the thing. I'm not saying not to make yourself or have a presence, right? We're not saying that today. You know what? Yes, why wouldn't you have a presence? But I think the relying on that and feeling like, oh, I put myself out there, everybody's going to listen. And maybe depending on what you're saying, and you don't, if you're not getting responses, you really have to think about how you're spending those resources, time, and like personal time, money, etc. to that. Um, and I think too, we're finding our experience has been that the organic space is one that gets overlooked a lot because you kind of go, well, everybody now knows what I'm doing. Isn't that what you said to do? Make sure don't be a secret coach or speaker or whatever. Yeah, that's true. But dig the well. The deeper you go, the fresher the water. I feel like Granny sitting on that chair, but it's the truth, right? Keep digging, keep having conversations. Um, because, and this is my perception, y'all can come at me if you want, but I feel like as this particular space grows and you're branding yourself and things like that, like sure, keep doing that, but the noise is getting louder. I feel like the noise is getting louder, and if you really want to stand out from the crowd, don't be part of the noise. Step away from the
Mm,
noise a little bit and not do what everybody else is doing, because you are lost in the shuffle of that. I don't care who you are. I don't care how you do it. If you are not like big name already, you know, guess what? You're part of the noise. So maybe
yeah,
it is about shifting that mindset a little bit and saying, hey, let me start off a little more, like a little smaller or a little more direct or a little more specific. Might feel like it's taking longer, but how long do you want to sit in the noise? I mean, that's just perception that you're out there and people know who you are. The only people
yeah,
who know who I am are the people who know me or the people who have worked with me. I'm being honest. Nobody, my name is not a household name. I am not a, and go through your head like top, personal development people. There's at least a top 10 that we can all relate to, even if you're not in the field, right? I'm not one of them. I'm not. And I accept that. So why would I do what they're doing? Like, it's just, for me, it gets a little murky.
mhm, yeah. I don't. Do you know what? Personally, I don't even want to be one of them. That's not one of my goals.
No,
Not that I want to be successful, but I don't want to be. I
sure.
don't want to be one of those top household name people in the personal development world. It's not a goal. Um, that said, you said something yesterday, in another conversation that I think could be interesting to hear a little bit about how you approach the win that you've had recently. And you don't have to share, of course, the details of that, but that you approached it differently. You approached it in a
Oh,
way you
yeah.
never had before.
Mm,
What are you able to say about that win and the way you
yeah.
approached it that changed for you?
Yeah, I think it's huge for me and new. So to simply say it, as an entrepreneur, no matter what business industry, et cetera, it was, let me show you a product. The product was a topic, essentially. That's what I've gone for. So, for example, during after COVID, when quiet quitting was like the hot topic of the moment, guess what I did? I created a product around that I could sell, pitch, propose to the right people. Like, I think I've advanced enough in my business, and knowledge that I knew who that would matter to. I'm sorry, to whom that would matter. And but anyway, John's laughing at me. But so that wasn't the issue. And I did something very different. Instead of proposing a specific piece of content, which, flash in the pan, folks, topics and relevance change. Some of them are pretty consistent, but getting there, it changes with like the news. It's just like what's really important to people at the moment.
Yeah,
And I wasn't off the mark. I just wasn't speaking to these companies in the way that they were listening. They might look at it and say, well, gee, that is a true, challenge we have. And I did get hired. I didn't not get hired, but it was only at a specific level. And the change that happened that John's referring to is that instead of trying to solve a very specific problem, I realized there was a bigger problem, a bigger challenge. And I addressed that. And it was, for me, providing flexibility and opportunity for these companies rather than here's this one time fill in the blank, this is what's hot right now solution. It wasn't broad enough So isn't it interesting that I spent most of my career being told, like, pigeonhole it. What's the problem? But I missed it. I was solving temporary problems, or I was solving very specific problems, but there was an overarching bigger problem or challenge. And the minute I offered it differently, I just took a shot. I threw some spaghetti at the wall. It stuck. Like, it stuck hard. And it made me
Yeah.
realize that my approach was not different than anybody else's. So what I'm offering now is I wouldn't say nobody's doing it, but nobody that I know is doing it, and I'm doing it very differently.
Yeah. I love that, and thank you for sharing that as well. I think that without having to go into any detail, you were able to share really the essence of what was significant there. And for me, one of the things that I think has been most critical in making a shift and change for me has been stopping trying to do all the things and just sort of saying, all right, even though I want to do all these things, let's focus on what I decided is most important. And even having done that, other stuff is still going on. Everything else is still
Yeah.
carrying on around that. But I'm just saying, right, my focus, my attention is on this. It's freed up a lot of mental space for me.
Yep.
I say probably, and I was thinking about, I like to have a word for the year. I think you said something about having this as well before.
I do
maybe as
have
well,
one, but go ahead.
but my word for 2026 is this year's word has been consistency, and I feel that has been a good touchstone for me this year. Next year's word for me, I did, and next year's word for me is presence. Is presence, because I think that's what it's all about at the moment. And these changes that I've been making have given me more presence. They've given me a better ability to see the playing field that I'm on and to address the things that I'm talking about. Because when we're spread thin, we don't have enough presence. We don't have enough presence to be able to see clearly what's going on, or to really put the value into all the things that we're doing. We can apply little droplets of value here and there, but when we can be really present, when there's less to try and achieve, your results become a lot clearer. Like, I said to you, I think I spent several days working on that article last week. I would never have done that before. I would have churned it out and that's good enough. I decided to spend time working on it because I thought it was important, and I wanted it to be readable, something that had a flow to it and something that had impact for people. And it's like, all right, I want to carry on doing that. But if I was just, all right, let's churn out the content, it would not have had anything like the level of presence that it did. Now, I think there were other things that played with that as well, but for me, this is the essence of it. Like, I have given myself the space to be present with what I'm doing, and that has changed things for me.
So here's the moral of the story, right? Is that, although John and I are sharing, some of our successes and some of the ideas that really didn't suit us or fit what it really should have looked like, we didn't know what we didn't know. And we went through that process. But I think coming to this realization is going to give us the opportunity to see now, oh, this is my new next door, right? The new next that I'm under my understanding, my lessons in business. And that was part of our conversation, right, with a couple of our friends yesterday. Like, I feel each of us is having these enlightening moments of what we believe to have been true about business or the industries that we're working in is not necessarily exactly as we perceived it to be. And it's so funny because I think each of us were like, oh, like, I'm kicking myself. And then we kind of came at each other and said, well, wait a minute, kicking ourselves, why? That's part of the process. So the point is to that, and I said this at the very beginning, when you are this type of personal development, especially when you're learning and growing, it doesn't ever stop. And there should never be the expectation that there's some arrival, right? There's stops along the way that are going to feel like lessons, good or bad, right? But it's never, it just says the story doesn't stop. It doesn't have an ending as long as you're in that business and in that industry. It's not a 9 to 5 where you can close the laptop at the end of the day and go, well, I'm done. It just doesn't work that way. So I think giving ourselves the grace to accept, get excited. Like, I had this success and I can't wait to see where the journey takes me next, because I know there is a next, rather than feeling disappointed because there is a next and going, oh, there's more? Yeah, there's more. And it's always, John and I aren't coaches for like a minute or a year. It's years, decades of doing what we do in development, personal, professional. So I think it's a great
what a journey.
mindset to go forward.
You win or you learn, right? You win or you learn.
Yeah. What did you say your word for 2026 was?
Presence.
It is presence. I'm sorry, I said that on purpose. But anyway, so yeah, I had a couple I actually was trying to decipher. One of them was no. That's a personal one. But I think professionally, I haven't really come up with one yet. Like, what is the word that I want to bring into my business or my mindset, and I'm still deciphering all that. So hopefully by next time I'll have something to share in terms of what that looks like. So that's it for me.
Yeah. Well, look, why don't you come and share with us as well? What have been your ups and downs for the past year? What have been your lessons from the past year? And what's going to be your touchstone, your word for 2026? Stay on with us and you'll hear exactly how to leave us a message.
Do you have a question for the coaching clinic?
Reach out on LinkedIn to connect with Angie and John.
Leave us a voicemail or video message and we will feature you on the show.
You can also leave up to 90-second voicemail for free on www.speakpipe.com/the Coaching Clinic podcast.
We'd love to hear from you.
See you next time.
Bye for now.